Locked on Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. If you want to bet on Texas or on Kansas State in this matchup on Saturday, make sure you go to Bet Online to do that. I brought Josh Neighbors, our Locked On Big 12 host, on the show to talk Kansas State and how Texas can get back in the win column. But first, Josh, I got to ask you. So this past Saturday, it was Texas Southern University's homecoming, my alma mater. Shout out to HBCU. So I was having a grand time, not worried about college football. Texas was on a bye. Checked my phone in the morning, and Kansas State has beat Oklahoma State 48-0. What the hell happened?
Well, Kansas State was well prepared and played their best game they could possibly play, and Oklahoma State was not. And, it looked like Oklahoma State was prepared for Adrian Martinez to play at quarterback, and they got Will Howard, who threw the ball all over them. It's a bad pass defense too. I know Texas fans, they didn't get to fully see, the advantage taken of the bad Oklahoma State pass defense. But trust me, it is bad. It's one of the worst in the league. And Will Howard was excellent. It's his best game that he has played as a college player by far. And they were able to spread the ball all over the place. They were strong on defense. I mean, I don't think maybe once it happened that Oklahoma State got inside the 30. And I think it might be pretty clear, and we'll see what happens with Spencer Sanders' health. But I don't mean this just to say this to make fans feel better. I think Oklahoma State really kind of emptied the clip against Texas. I mean, they were really injured and back into that game. It's clear Sanders has not been right. And it took everything they had to win that football game. They came back next week. They were not prepared. They still look injured, and I'm not sure they get their quarterback, back. So they kind of got what's left of Mike Gundy's group this year, especially if there's no Spencer Sanders playing. It could go south in a hurry for the Pokes. So, but that's not to take credit away from Kansas State, who basically played a perfect game. I'm not really sure it would have mattered how good Oklahoma State was on that day. Kansas State was going to win that game.
So who do you expect to start at quarterback for the Wildcats on Saturday against Texas?
It's a great question. Heard from Chris Kleiman yesterday, who said that we'll see on Saturday, were his words. It sounded like their idea last week was to see how Martinez felt on Thursday and then make the call. But they asked Martinez then on Saturday, hey, can you play? And he said, are you 100%? He said no. I think there's a certain amount of if you give Will Howard reps the ones all week long, and he's the one game planning, is it really smart to give Martinez the ball on Saturday? You know what I mean? Is that really the right thing to do? Especially because their offense, it's still the same offense, right? But what they do changes. Adrian Martinez is a functional passer when they're at their best. He's really a great runner, though, for a quarterback. I mean, he's an explosive runner. He's really good in the open field. He's a really difficult short yardage runner to bring down because of how big he is. It's Deuce Vaughn kind of all four downs if it's 4-down territory for them. But if you need a few yards, you're probably going to give the ball to Martinez because of how big he is. And he's really good at getting forward and getting short yardage. I mean, Deuce Vaughn would have a ton more touchdowns this year if it weren't for the fact that he has the handcuff running back who's the quarterback next to him, to use kind of a fantasy football term. So their offense changes a bit. I suspect that Will Howard played so well last week, and he's going to get the majority of the reps, the ones this week, that is the way that they're going to go on Saturday. That's my hunch. I've got no inside information, but you'd think if you have a guy play his best game and he was that good, and Martinez still isn't 100%, you might want to roll with that until he's good to go. And I think the thing is, Jonathan, I'm also not sure Kansas State's offense is at their best with Howard. They can stretch the field more, but I don't know what happens when they go up against a good defense. Things kind of got sideways for them with the TCU game, although there's some injuries involved with that. But they rocked Oklahoma State last week. I just don't know what things look like if the going gets tough for Will Howard and against a better defense. And I think I know what happens with Martinez. Their running game is still as dynamic as it gets because of both those guys in the backfield.
Yeah, and a reminder that this is being recorded on Wednesday morning at 8:50 a.m. So by the time you hear it, something may have came out about who's starting on Saturday. But like Josh Neighbors said, we most likely will find out on Saturday, so I doubt that'll happen. What do you think this Texas defense needs to do to stop this Kansas State offense, really, regardless of who's at quarterback? I know you said things are going to look a little bit differently, but what do you think this Texas defense needs to do to stop this offense that just put up almost 50 points against Oklahoma State?
They need to make Will Howard uncomfortable. That is the one thing that it felt like Oklahoma State was not able to do. And you want to see what a guy look. And he's actually played a decent amount, so I hesitate to call him a young quarterback. But we have to remember this: that he's played in relief at points for Skylar Thompson. He was kind of sort of supposed to be the one coming to this year, and it's pretty clear Kansas State wasn't comfortable with that, so they brought in Adrian Martinez. And Will Howard is kind of getting his shot. And to use kind of a different example, like Max Duggan played more than Will Howard did, but he got relegated and then came back in and did really well. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for quarterbacks to do that. But I would say I would want to make this kid uncomfortable and do as much as you can. Now, if you're going to do that, you got to make sure you're really responsible with Deuce Vaughn, right? I think the one thing that he's the ultimate safety valve, right? So if you're going to get pressure, bring pressure. You're going to want to see if you can bring pressure to the side where Deuce Vaughn's lined up. If you bring pressure, that's, get hands up in the passing lanes, right? Make sure it's really difficult to get those dump offs, and also swarm to the football if they are able to do it. That's kind of the key. Don't let, the safety valve offense be the thing that kind of beats you in this game, if possible. He threw some real missiles over the top, so I'll give him credit on that. I'm wondering if he can do it 2 weeks in a row. I'm wondering if he can do it with pressure in his face, and also made some mistakes last week too. You expect some of that, but he's playing with a lot of confidence, and things are slowing down for him. I think the key in this game is they have to speed things back up for him. They have to make things fast again. And I will say, the one advantage Texas does have on this regard is their defense is a lot faster than Oklahoma State's, I would say. Their defense is a bit more athletic. It's a bit more aggressive. It can be a bit more aggressive, I should say. And I think because of that, they will have the opportunity to try and cause some problems for Howard.
Yeah, the defenses look completely different in true road games. So hopefully that trend doesn't continue. Deuce Vaughn, one of the most electric playmakers in the country. Does Texas have a chance to shut him down on Saturday, or are you just hoping that he doesn't go crazy to the point that he beats you single-handedly?
Yeah, I mean, you can slow him down. It is very difficult to do. Tulane was pretty successful this. Now, granted, Tulane did that with Tulane did that, when Martinez was in, so it was a little bit different of attack. They kind of stacked the box, and we're fine with whatever happened on the outside, and Martinez wasn't able to make it happen. Will Howard's more willing to take those risks on the outside and push the ball down the field. So I think, obviously that's something that you have to consider is how do you balance this? Or do you let do you let Deuce Vaughn get his? But the problem is that normally opens things up everywhere else for them, right? And they've got good skill players. Like, don't get me wrong, Phil Brooks, Malik Knowles are actually two very good wide receivers. Cade Warner's a really good, capable tight end. They just haven't been getting the ball to those guys, and they actually started doing a lot more of it last week. So that to me is kind of, that's kind of the interesting part of this is how do you handle this? But stacking the box against them is not always the worst idea, and making whoever the quarterback is beat you by throwing the football. He did it last week, sure, but playing Texas is a bit different deal.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this Texas offense and how they can attack Kansas State's defense next. But first, a quick word from Sweat Block. If you stink or think you stink, or if you sweat too much or think you sweat too much, make sure you go grab Sweat Block. It was created by a doctor to help with his own excessive sweating. So if he had the self-awareness to use Sweat Block, you might need to as well. It is doctor created and doctor recommended. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try Sweat Block. Save 20% with promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. Josh, what do you think Steve Sarkisian needs to come out and do to attack this Kansas State defense and get a win on the road, which has been one of Steve Sarkisian's Achilles heels thus far in his first 20 games as the head coach at the University of Texas?
Yeah, it's been a huge problem. The one thing I will say about Steve Sarkisian, I think it's evident with coaches like him and coaches like Josh Heupel, is that they're really good on the script. And I know Texas fans know this. They're really good with those first. Now, execution could be an issue. Like the Quinn Ewers pick was, that was a Quinn Ewers problem. And he's threw many of those in that game. The ones at the end, though, were like those interceptions at the end. He had to be chucking the ball deep. So it was kind of a function of that, but he didn't play very well in that Oklahoma State game. They're so good on the script. And the question for me, Jonathan, is can they keep that going? I will say this Kansas State team, they have playmakers at all three levels of the defense. They've got two really good corners. They've got a linebacking core that's played really well. Austin Moore's been a guy that, has been fantastic for them at the linebacking spot and was, a guy who was somebody who's a walk-on for them. Deuce Green, I'm not sure if he's playing or not. He's kind of the tremendous linebacker coming into the season, but Moore's been just as good next to him. And then obviously Felix Anudike-Uzomah is a game wrecker on the offensive line. Now I will say that Alabama game was good evidence of them doing a good job handling a guy that they knew was a really good pass rusher. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Did Tyree Wilson have a good game for Texas against them? I don't remember if Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech did well off the edge off the top of my head, but
I think he came on late, but he wasn't great. Like I thought he wasn't their best defensive player like I thought he would be.
They've done a good job managing, I think, some of the better defensive players. Now, I thought Mason Cobb had an excellent game against Texas, but they can do that with some of the edge players, and they can roll protections certain ways, and they've been very good at that. I do want to see, I'm wondering if feeding Bijan Robinson, and also they got to feed Roschon Johnson the ball more too. Like we can't just Roschon has got the full tank. I mean, he can hit him as hard as you want him to, because he gets, and look, you saw the carries. I think he got the ball once in the second half of that Oklahoma State game. I think it was one touch that he got. They got to get him the ball more. And I think trying to get them in space and trying to have them operate against those linebackers, they're very good at tackling in space, but those guys, especially Bijan, is such a next level player, right? Sometimes it just doesn't matter. Sometimes it's too hard to tackle guys like that in space. And so I think that's the difference in this game is see if you can get these guys in space and have them beat them, because it's the talented group. It's a really talented group from Kansas State on the defensive side of the ball. They got a lot of pressure last week, rushing 3 or 4 guys. I don't think that'll be the case this week. I don't think they can just live with that this week. And I think they're going to want to obviously pressure, get a bit more pressure for Quinn Ewers because he can be a pinpoint accurate passer at times. And I don't think you just want to let him sit back there and be comfortable all day. I don't think that's the right way how you handle a Quinn Ewers. I think just much like Will Howard, like if you've injured Spencer Sanders back there, it's like, sure, let's see if he can pick us apart. I doubt you can, right? And he couldn't at all. And their coverage is really good. This is a bit different because the guys like Worthy and Sanders and Robinson and Johnson are such good athletes, and Whittington too. I don't discount Whittington. He's such a really good receiver. Those guys are so gifted and very good as well. You can't just let them pick you apart and find the zone like Quinn Ewers spin it. You got to make him uncomfortable. You got to disrupt the timing early on. And I think this passing game is what's going to have to win them the game. I don't think they can just run the football and win this football game. I think they got to throw the rock.
Yeah, you talked about Kansas State not letting the playmakers eat. The problem is at times Sark hasn't let the playmakers eat.
Yeah,
and God, I wish he watched Locked
Which is weird because that's what he's best. That's what he's best known for, right? Is letting playmakers make plays. But also, Falcons fans would tell you like, where the hell was Julio Jones the entire time he was calling plays for us? So I guess there's that too.
Preach it to the choir, Josh. Man, this hurts. You're opening up wounds right now. You kind of led into my next point, which I was going to ask you, which based on what you saw against Oklahoma State with Quinn Ewers, that was his first true road test because he didn't play against Texas Tech. Do you think it's better for Texas to come into this game featuring Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson, and Keelan Robinson only has 19 touches on the season, which is crazy, and letting Quinn Ewers complement them? Or do you think Quinn Ewers needs to be the focal point of this game for the Texas offense and the running game complements the pass game?
Well, there's multiple ways to get this thing done. I think TCU showed that you can, like, if you mix the run of the pass well, depending on, like, there are times where later on in the game, TCU did a very good job running the football at Kansas State and helped them sustain some drives and get the job done later on in the game. We know that's not where Texas has lived in the past, is later on in games, standing up. And so that's the big question to me is, like, can they get in a spot where they're up a score later on in the game? Can they run the football and try to control the pace? And maybe they're the ones who are saying, all right, let's see, if we give Will Howard limited possessions at the end of the game, Can we get that? But here's the thing. They're going to have to throw the football in some way, shape, or form to get this win, like consistently do it. They can make plays against the secondary. It's a really good secondary, but like those guys will be on islands sometimes, and they are a little banged up, this Kansas State secondary. So coming off a bye week, I want the Ferraris to go. I want these guys who are these, special weapons to go. And also that if you balance Roschon and Bijan more, it's going to be better off because like they can give you 100% or 90% of what they are on most of their touches. And that needs to be, and also Keelan Robinson, like toss him there. Why not do that? But like you need to do that. And I don't, you'll get those guys in space, angle routes, whatever it is, routes to flat, screen passes, counters or sweeps, whatever it is you can do, like get those guys the football, make them respect that, open things up the passing game. I know that they want to do play action. That's a big part of the game. They want to do the play action and take those shots. But I think it's going to be the passing game, but it's going to be the passing game getting those other guys involved. Just because they're great playmakers, as I said, on Kansas State, but there's next level guys on the Texas side of things.
Yeah, I'm just going to email this to Steve Sarkisian and hope he has 20 minutes of free time between now and Saturday. A quick word from Simply Safe, and then I'm going to give Josh Neighbors the opportunity to rant on TCU possibly being hosed in the college football playoff rankings, the initial rankings. We give him his chance to rant on Locked On Longhorns. If you thought about securing your home with home security but have been putting it off, you want to listen up because right now, Locked On Longhorns listeners can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and of course, you don't want to miss it. Simply Safe was named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report, a third year in a row. Why would you not want the best in your home? Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/URL today. This is their biggest discount of the year. So don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnCollege. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, Josh. So I can't remember exactly where they are. Is TCU 8th, 7th in the college football playoff rankings?
Number 7 in the college football playoff.
So they come in at number 7. They're undefeated on the season, and a lot of people feel like they are way too low. They're behind the Alabama team that is lost. And Steven Simcox, our Locked On TCU host, tweeted that it's not the right time to be upset, but he took a shot at Texas and OU, saying if Texas and Oklahoma had the same resume that TCU has now, there's no question they would be in the top 4 to 5. So I'm going to ask you a 2-part question. 1, did TCU get hosed by maybe some SEC bias? And 2, if Texas or OU had the same resume TCU has now, would they undoubtedly be in the top 4 or 5?
Yeah. I mean, Texas got into the rankings at 5-3, and I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world, but I mean, let's be like, I think Texas is really good. I'll be honest. Like their performance, their results are, and this always happens. It always happens, whatever. But like their results are not an indication of how good the team actually is. And they have to finish games, but yeah, whatever it is. Y'all heard it before. Let's just start with this way. Like Alabama should not be ahead of TCU. Blue Corrigan, who is the committee's head, said yesterday in his interview afterwards that basically like TCU has played some really close games. Well, I would counter that with, well, they won them all, right?
And they had to come from behind. That was an issue in the room. They had to come from behind.
Right. And like, I don't care though. They won them. They won all of them.
Who knew resilience was a bad thing, right?
Yeah. And look, the thing is like, they're so good where they can keep spotting teams 2-score leads and be like, all right, I guess we're going to turn the jet engine on. We got Quentin Johnston ready to go. We got Tabar ready to go. We got Kendra Miller. I mean, Jonathan, last week, they throw nukes at you. They had 4 50-yard plus touchdowns last week. Like, who does that? TCU is Max Duggan's like, all right, Savion Williams. Quentin Johnston. I mean, I don't know why he's the fifth ranked receiver in the class coming up. This guy is just, they have him post up like a basketball player. He'll catch, drop step, and dudes start flying by him. He hits the Jets. They can't, I mean, it's unbelievable. Kendra Miller's going for like 6 yards a pop this year. Sometimes I think Garrett Riley hasn't done an excellent job calling plays all the way throughout the year. There's some times where he forgets about the running game and they'll just run it 4, 5, 6 straight times for 6, 7, 8 yards a pop. And it's like, oh my God, this team had an embarrassment of riches that I don't think we understood. And they're being penalized for playing these close games. But the thing is, it's week after week after week. Biggest game that Kansas has had in a long time. They go there and they get that win in that game. And I know Jalen Daniels goes out, but Jason Bean's thrown all over the field. They get that win in that game. They blew the doors off Oklahoma. That game, it wasn't even a game. It was never a game. And Oklahoma looks a lot better now. They beat Kansas State. Tell me what you want on injuries, but it's part of the game for everybody. And they were down 18 and erased it like it was nothing in that game. Ended up winning by 2 scores over Kansas State. West Virginia game, like, it was close, sure. It's going to happen. But guess what they did? They won the game. A&M played a pretty close game against Alabama. We don't respect them at all. Like, they were one pass away, one good call away from winning that football game. Nobody mentioned that. It's like almost a feather in the cap for Alabama. So the problem, like, am I saying that TCU beats Alabama on neutral field right now? No, but Alabama's not good enough to just look over their one loss like it's nothing. They allowed 49 points in that game. I mean, if you want to talk about close games, the Texas game was really close too. And you and I talked about that. Like, Texas had a legit chance to win it. That team is way too individualistic. Like, that's not a complete group at all that they have on the Alabama team. Not saying it's a cohesion problem, but they commit a ton of penalties. And we saw it in that game against Texas. They're way too reliant on Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs. They're like those two guys have to get the job done. Their offensive line's not nearly as good as it normally is. Their wide receivers are not nearly as good as they normally are. Their quarterback is a special. I mean, I'm not going to call him once generation type player, but Bryce Young's ridiculous. He is a ridiculous player. And I think he covers up a lot of things that go wrong for that team. And Jahmyr Gibbs has been awesome too. Thank God they got him, because I love watching him also. And then Turner and Anderson have been awesome. Or maybe not awesome, but still pretty good for them. But like, this is not the normal full throttle Alabama group that we're used to seeing. And so I don't like the fact that they're ahead with the one loss. And I don't think the justification for it is very fair. I mean, a lot of people, Adam Rittenberg from ESPN yesterday was talking. He said, look, I think that, that TCU should be ahead of Clemson. I think that's a conversation that can happen. And look, I actually put Clemson ahead of them. I think the Clemson's had a really good season. We have not given them enough credit. They've got some really strong wins that don't look as strong now, but I think they're strong at the time, much like TCU does. So I think it's a good team. But it should be Clemson 5, and then they should probably put TCU at 6. And the other problem is, Jonathan, is that LSU's at 10. Ole Miss is at LSU at 10 is just, I mean, I'm not sure what world we're living with that. Ole Miss is at 11. And so you're setting Alabama up to keep getting these wins, and TCU can't jump them because TCU's got good games left in the schedule. But if Alabama keeps beating these top-ranked teams who could potentially be fraudulent in the SEC, it's going to keep boosting their resume up. I mean, they didn't put Texas in the top 25 just for TCU's sake. They did that for Bama, to make Bama's win look better. That's why Texas is number 24. They're trying to justify some of the stuff that they're doing in the front part. That's the whole point of that back part. And so that's the problem that we're running into now. That's the big issue. And I don't mean to be SEC biased, but like, you can't look at that poll and tell me there's not SEC bias. It just doesn't work.
Josh gonna get us in trouble here on Locked On Longhorns. Talking about they put Texas in there to boost Alabama.
They did. I think Texas is good.
Them big people we don't know about to come from me, man. I'm gonna be like, it was Josh Neighbors. Go get Locked On Big 12, man.
Look, they're a good football team. Texas is, but there's a reason the AP they're outside the top 25. Like they are probably one of the best 25 teams in the country. I'm not going to dispute that. But the problem is, you watch them play and look at their resume. And it's like, they're not you got to cash in. You know this. And look, it's better than it was last year, sure. But you don't cash in against Texas Tech, and you don't cash in against Oklahoma State. You should have won both those games, and you didn't. And you should be penalized for that, right? You should be penalized for it. But they're not, because they want to boost Alabama's standing.
Yeah, improving on 5 and 7 doesn't move the needle for me at all. So it doesn't matter to me if Texas is ranked or not ranked at this point. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here, Josh, besides Locked On Big 12?
You guys can find Locked On Big 12 wherever you guys get your podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, all those places. Follow us on Twitter at LO Big 12, and you guys can find me at Josh Neighbors _.
All right, man. Y'all see me rocking this Astros hat on here. This is being recorded on Wednesday morning. Hopefully, by the time y'all hear this, the Astros tied the series 2-2. Because if they go down 3-1 with Game 5 in Philly, good night, Irene. Hook 'em.
Yeah.
And peace.